Greetings and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about great apes. The entity known as Quo has noted many times that humanity's tendencies toward war and bellicosity can be traced back to our great ape ancestors, and that a key to our making the leap forward to graduate from third to fourth density is growing out of our perceived need to defend family, clan, and territory from perceived enemies and threats. How can we learn to let go of tribalistic second density fears that lock us into the past and instead reach forward to embrace the best possibilities of our fourth density futures? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong. I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups at the L&L Research website shown on your screen. We also have a Facebook group, and we do meet on Zoom twice a week. Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, Saturdays 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week with Zoom links and information on what we're talking about that week. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as recordings of our monthly Q&As with Jim McCarty. Just go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button to get notifications when we upload new videos, and contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you'd like to sit in on any of our Q&A sessions. As mentioned, today's topic is great apes. Let's go ahead and meet our other panelists. Panelists, go ahead, let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from. Starting with Ashley.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley calling from New Jersey.
So great to have you again, Ashley. And Yasi.
Hi, I'm Yasi, calling from Houston. Very excited to be here and for this conversation.
We're so excited to have you back. Seems like it's been forever. And Ben.
Hey, everybody. My name is Ben. I'm from Everett, Washington, and I am also grateful to be here.
As are we. So grateful to have all three of you on. Did want to remind our viewers, as always, none of us here are experts or authorities on the law of one or on primate biology. We are just normal people like you having a normal conversation about things of a spiritual nature that seem important to us. Anything that we say could be wrong. You're welcome to disagree with anything that any of us say. If you are already familiar with the law of one and the entity known as Quo, you might want to go ahead, skip ahead to the chapter on great ape ancestors. Otherwise, for those who are new to the law of one, you can think of it as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. All of the reading passages that we're looking at came to us through the process known. You can think of channeling as a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, inner planes beings, spirits of deceased, higher self, etc. A channel basically serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through, and in this case, those entities would appear to be extraterrestrial. There are two types of channeling that have been developed by our friends at L&L Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, subconscious or unconscious as if asleep, meaning they are not aware of what words are coming out of their mouths as they're saying them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Ra back in the early 1980s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they are only somewhat aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they are speaking them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Quo, starting in the mid-1980s up to present day. Who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at 6th density, Latui at 5th density, Hatan at 4th density. You can think of a social memory complex as a planetary consciousness, as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind. You can think of densities or dimensions as different levels of consciousness or reality, since those two things are so closely intertwined. Imagine, if you will, that the elements of earth, fire, water, and air have some form of consciousness, as many indigenous cultures have been saying they do for centuries. We call this first density. You can think of second density as the level of consciousness of plants and animals, clearly a quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of what we would refer to as inanimate matter. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans and cetaceans, such as whales and dolphins. Again, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of plants and other animals. You can think of fourth density as the level of consciousness of the social memory complex, as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one single consciousness. Clearly, a big quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of one individual person. You can think of fifth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of fourth density, and sixth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of fifth density. There is more to it than that, and if you want, go check out our podcast episode on densities and dimensions. Otherwise, for now, suffice it to say, Quo appears to be a group entity made up of three planetary consciousnesses: Ra at sixth density, Latui at fifth density, and Hatan at fourth density. First contact with Quo was made by the L&L research channeling team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984. They have been channeled every month since then up to present day by the L&L research channeling team. Transcripts of those sessions can be found at the L&L research conscious channeling library shown on your screen. Having said all of that, let's take a look at a couple passages on Great Ape Ancestors. On November 18th, 2011, Quo said, "When you gaze at the instincts of the stock from which your species developed, you may see that your instincts, those deep-seated predilections for response in certain situations, are those of a territorial animal. Your great apes occupy a certain area in which they are upon their home territory for hunting food and protecting their source of water. The nature of this species is such that for the most part, entities remain within various small groupings, each with its own territory, and with each territory being allowed in its own way in what this instrument would call a laissez-faire structure, each group being independent from each other group, no attempt being made to work together in larger groups. This is the instinct basis which feeds into the mind's working, for a portion of the mind is involved with prioritizing messages from the body, which has a tag which says urgent. Therefore, even though these instincts are unthinking, they represent a substantial bias that prejudices third density entities in the direction of what is perceived as their territory or their possession. If you will gaze upon the tangle of reasons surrounding your bellicose actions, you will find that territorial considerations almost always play a significant role. This is the energy of red ray, of survival being expressed. When the territory is threatened, the territory must be defended. When other territory is seen as necessary and it must be gotten, then aggression is considered reasonable. This remains a substantial portion of the reason for war in third density. Yeah, fascinating thing. And I did want to start off by reminding our viewers again that everything you saw here came to us through the process of channeling. So the person who was saying this was really only somewhat aware of what words are coming out of their mouths as they were saying them. They felt they were making telepathic contact with what they felt was an extraterrestrial entity, which is super fascinating if you look at it in those terms. Otherwise, yeah, fascinating look at our history here. Ashley, any thoughts on anything here?
Just that it does make sense that we have, I mean, if we look around at the current state of humanity and over history, we definitely have played out more instinctual patterns as far as the hoarding of resources, the clan-based mentality, which excludes other. We've definitely, over the history all around the planet, exhibited these behaviors of the monkey mind. So it makes sense to me. That's what came to mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And only seems to be intensifying now in 2025, the end of third density. As we have been told many times, planet Earth is already vibrating fully in fourth density. Third density light is all but gone. So it's just humanity that seems to be lagging behind and clinging to third density thought patterns and second density primal ape thought patterns and territoriality as well. So I think we can only expect to see the catalysts increasing here. Ben, did you want to share thoughts, reflections?
Yeah, sure. So I think that this behavior of existing, I guess, makes sense when you're talking about animals and like wolf packs and even like a beehive. But I think that it all comes down to the illusion of separation and division, and seeing someone else is not as you, and so I think it all comes. The way to evolve out of this, I think it comes back to compassion and empathy and recognizing that the other self is the self, and that's uh, the great, I guess, realization you have to come to in third density in order to, I think, make the leap to fourth density, is the recognition that all is one, and that when I'm separating myself and calling this other person as less than, and not deserving of health, wealth, and happiness in life, then that's cutting myself off too in a way. So it's a very self-destructive pattern that humanity is caught in, and I think it stems from past trauma of suffering and societies that have endured through trauma. So there's a
For
great
sure.
healing that has to occur as well in order for us to evolve. So uh, and that's
Yeah, and not just from this planet. I mean, we're talking about trauma
yes,
from other planets that blew themselves up or were rendered uninhabitable. So there's just these habitual, endless repetition of cycles that are really hard to break out of for sure. Yasi, did you have any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you guys both, you all talk about themes that are going to keep coming up in different passages. One of them is just the idea that we act with this basic instinct that's left over from our, ape ancestors, and that instinct is a territorial one. But when I read this, usually when I think about the territorial instinct, I think of countries like at war, or countries vying for land. But for some reason, when I read this passage the first time, I thought about how do I individually act with a territorial basic instinct. It's not the one that usually comes up as an individual one for me. I always think of it as like a group one, but it made me think, how many times during the day do I maybe react out of that instinct, like in traffic when somebody cuts me off, or, there must be so many little moments where my reaction is coming from that very deep-seated basic instinct. And it was eye-opening for me. I never thought about territorialism as one of the ones that really affects us very, very deeply and strongly. So I thought that was interesting because I'm sure we'll talk about all the ways that it affects us as big communities. And then the other thing that I think is a theme that's going to keep coming up in the different passages is that line in the second paragraph that says, if you will gaze upon the tangle of reasons surrounding your bellicose actions. It's just, that is such a strong thing. If you will just take a moment to gaze upon the reasons that you have your reactions, like, it's so deep. That one's so deep. It's all about using your will and your conscious awareness to gaze upon why you react the way you do, right? Like, if you'll just look inwards, if you'll just dig into the subconscious, you'll realize that you react often by these like subconsciously seated reasons that you might not have been aware of, but that very much illuminate your actions once you gaze upon them. So I think those
For
themes
sure.
will keep coming up in all the other passages, but those were
For sure.
important ones for me.
Yeah, and I think it's a good reminder that family and feelings of family and clan and tribe are really central to these great ape instincts. Because oftentimes people think, well, if I'm thinking of my kids more than I'm thinking of myself, does that mean I'm like 51% service to others? And I think In some ways, on some level, it is, but I think in some ways, on other levels, it isn't. Because my understanding, and again, others could disagree. I would love to hear what you guys think. I think a big key to making the leap from third density to fourth density is unconditional love. And that means love for not just the people who are your family or your friends or the people you already like. It's unconditional love for the people you fucking hate or find the most annoying or like are total strangers that you know nothing about. That I think is kind of a key to it. And I think that's part of the challenge that maybe Ben was mentioning before. That is the challenge of third density, to see all others as self, including those you might regard as your enemy or who regard you as enemy. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Anything?
That's
I
very
agree
true.
with you. 100% I agree. Uh, I I believe it was Carla who said you didn't come here to fix everything and to fix everyone. You didn't come here to fix it. You came here to love it. And that is so central to overriding that monkey mind. That instinct is the love, for me anyway, when we can put down those territorial walls that you were talking about, Yasi, not just in a larger sense, but inside the territory of our heart. We think and we grip it so tightly. We don't want it to be hurt. We don't want it to be taken. And that is instinctive, I think. I think that comes from our ancestors. And when we can drop that and get out of the survival mode of the heart, then we can share it more freely. And that's where we come in with what you're saying, Jonathan, where we're able to love unconditionally because we're no longer territorial over the green ray. Yeah.
Territory of the heart. I'm going to remember that. That is a really
know.
great phrase. I think that's going to be a podcast episode sometime soon.
I agree. I was thinking territorial over the green ray. That's so good. Like, Jonathan, to your point, when you talk about your kids, right? Like, that's such a big one for people, territory over their love for their kids. That is a kind of territory over the green ray. And it does bring out some not so great attributes of individuals. I think in those moments, sometimes they're not very kind to others because they think they've got all this love for their children, but it is a kind of territorialism. That's really, really
They
good.
love their children. Don't give a
Yeah.
fuck about yours or anybody else's, but
No.
they love their children.
Yeah, they're like speed through the school zone to pick up their kid who's like standing on the sidewalk, and you think, there are all these other children in the same area that you're like loving yours. They matter too, but there's a kind of blindness that happens when you have that territory over the green heart, and I think that's a really good way of defining it, Ashley.
Yeah, and there's racial elements that enter the picture too, and we could spend the next 2 hours talking about this passage. About, I think we were talking about countries and nations and such
Yeah.
more, which I think maybe comes into our second passage. Did anybody have anything they wanted to add about this passage before we change?
I think Ashley summed everything up nicely there with that phrase. So I have nothing else to add.
Nice. Well, let's take a look at a second passage from July 31st, 2007. Quo said, "Indeed, my brother, the entities who are in power among your nation states are focused upon those goals that have been the habitual goals of people in power upon your planet for millennia. Those goals are the goals of your great ape ancestors. They revolve around a love of their family and their tribe. When they have defined their tribe, then they attempt to defend their tribe's property and acreage and to gather resources so that their tribe may fare well in a world of diminishing resources. They have been in power before, perhaps many times, and have developed the habit of an unceasing thirst for power. And this they shall not yield in order to make room for service to other goals, such as true liberty, true equality, true justice, and a truly equitable distribution of the resources of your planet. We ask that you not be overly concerned with the state of the outer workings of your planet. We ask that your concern be to pray that these leaders may be forgiven, for they do not know what they are doing. They will come to dust, as all dragons must. Even now they are dying. The energy of the old world is weakening, and its hold upon the hearts and the minds of ordinary people, such as are gathered in this circle of seeking, is lessening every day. Beautiful passage. I believe this was from the session where the question was about war in the Middle East and why, with so many people praying for so long for war in the Middle East, that it still continues. And I appreciate the response, which is that, yeah, these prayers aren't designed to change the hearts of people as they are describing in this passage. It's more to alert those other entities that there is a call of distress and a yearning for peace on this planet, and that everyone adding to that call is a good thing. It's a worthy thing. And I love the poetry of the "this will come to dust as all dragons must." That's great poetry there from our Confederation friend. Do you have any thoughts, Yasi? Any thoughts on anything here?
I agree with the poetry thing, Jonathan. When I first read it, I was like, this is very Lord of the Rings. I loved it.
Or Dr. Seuss, yeah.
Or Dr. Seuss, yeah. It's interesting that the second paragraph follows the first one, and it's a good thing it does, because you read the first paragraph and you feel a bit of a sense of, I don't want to be a downer, but you feel a bit of hopelessness, because I mean, it just feels like such a deeply embedded thing that's happening, and you read it and it definitely brings up places like the Middle East, and I'm sure so many other places. But when you read how many millennia and how this is like something that they've done forever, and it's deeply seated, and it's about protecting your tribe, you start to feel like, how is it ever going to change then, right? And then the second paragraph, almost in answer, I feel like, to that sense of hopelessness, is tells you, don't worry about it. You're not meant to worry about how is it going to change. Just be still and just accept and have faith, I guess, that it's all going to come to pass and that it's unfolding as it's meant to, I guess, in some ways. So I appreciate that ray of hope when these really big, heavy things are so deeply embedded and hard to reconcile, I guess.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I appreciate how Ashley mentioned earlier, there was that session where Quo said, well, they probably said it more than once, that, yeah, you're not here to fix things. You're not here to change the world. You're here to love it as it is. You're not here to change anybody's minds. You're here to love them as they are. And I mean, that is a difficult, feels like a tall order. And yet, like you said, it does give you inspiration, hope that, okay, if I don't have to fix anything, if all I got to do is love them, okay, that might be easier. I'm not sure. What do you think, Ben? Any thoughts, reflections?
Yeah, a lot. I think first off, I love it's kind of like a shout out to Jesus saying, for they know not what they do. That's a quote, Christ quote from the cross. Forgive them for they know not what they do. And then it goes right into the dragons, which is awesome. I think a cool dichotomy there. But one thing when Donald Trump first became president, I was very activated. I'm a child of liberal teachers, and I was resisting it very much. I was out there marching and had my sign, and it was very divisive. And I feel like I was trying to force change in our government and get people to wake up and realize that, but I realize now that there's always going to be this dichotomy of how to do things, at least right now in today's third density planet Earth. And I think that I really like how it says, it's not our job to change it, to fix it. It's our job to love it and to accept it and to live with the awareness of the bigger picture. And I think that the catalyst is out there if you want it. If you want to fight and resist, that's there, and it's available for you to experience. But I think that you don't, as wanderers, you don't have to take on that burden of the weight of the world and the conflict and strife and the suffering of everyone. You just have to be aware of it and recognize that we can do better. And I think that I got into an argument with a friend a long time ago about not owning a firearm. And he asked me, like, he said, if you're not carrying, what if someone comes into your place of work and starts shooting the place up? Are you going to die for the fact that you don't want to have a gun? And I had to look at it and think about it. And I said, yeah, I think I would choose to be the person who dies innocently.
Yeah.
And you know, at least I lived in a way that was peaceful. And you know, the fact that I was existing with that energy and that mindset in this world is enough. And you don't have to go out and fight and stop everyone. You just have to carry the peace, you know, carry the love, and do the best you can, and recognize that catalyst is out there. And those who want to take on the catalyst and march and protest, you know, God bless them too. And you know, we're all one being seeking different experiences and playing out catalyst and karma in our lives.
So just out of curiosity, just to play devil's
sir.
advocate or STS advocate or whatever you want to call it, suppose instead of the workplace, suppose it was your home and somebody came in who was presenting a direct threat to your family. Would that change anything in your response?
Obviously, I would fight to protect my family and my body itself. And you know, I think that's part of the third density game. You know, we're even if I have to die for it to be morbid, in that case I would die to protect my family. But you know,
but you don't need a gun to do that either.
You don't need a gun to do that
A
either.
baseball
Right.
bat could probably do pretty nicely, I'm thinking.
Just a heavy
That's right.
object that you can grab. like-
I'm not above using a baseball bat. Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'm not a gun fan myself, and I feel, as you do about the marching and the protesting, I would hope nobody who's watching this feels like we're saying, well, it's a waste of time and you shouldn't
Right. No,
bother
no.
protesting things that you feel strongly about. If it's something that you feel called to do, then I think Carla felt very much like you at the time of the Iraq War. But I do also agree with Ben that don't feel like that's something that you have to do to change the world. Yeah. Ashley, any thoughts, reflections?
Yeah, I was like Yassi, I was feeling that a moment of compassion for our STS brothers and sisters, because they really don't know any other way to be. And sometimes the reaction of anger or resentment towards them maybe comes from the fact that we personalize it, but this is how their consciousness operates, and they don't know any other way to be. For them, for many of them, this is the right way. And so I just have a heart of compassion for that. And that softens the instinct for me to put up a wall. So that's one point. And then another one where the faculty of trying to just take care of the family, the clan, that mentality is instinctive. And there are studies that show that chimpanzees will group together and they'll go around and they'll attack those who they perceive as different within the jungles just because they're different and take their resources. And for me, I think it's an important point to understand that we are more than our instincts and we're more than our ancestors. We're more than that monkey mind. And that those habits, although they're within us, they aren't us. Like, we are not chimpanzees or apes. Our consciousness goes beyond that. So we can be more. And now I'm just randomly getting this quote from the movie The Iron Giant, where the little kid is telling the Iron Giant, as it's going into a bellicose frenzy because it was programmed to destroy, he says, "You are who you choose to be." So we are who we choose to be. Just because those instincts are there, the gift of humanity is that we can rise above that. And here comes another saying. Human is not something you're born as. Human is something you become. And I'll I'll stop there before more quotes come through. So
You're on fire. Keep it going, girl. Yeah, please do. Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful thought. And I think as you were speaking, the idea that came to mind was that we don't have to feel locked into the instincts and behavior of our great ape ancestors any more than we feel the need to be the same person we were when we were 5 years old or 8 years old. That was us, no doubt about it, and we did come out of that, but we have grown out of that. We've grown into better ways. And it's one thing that I appreciate about this whole law of one perspective. It's really a way of looking at the growth and evolution of humanity, and we've seen where we've gone, and now they're actually showing us a roadmap of where we can go in the future into fourth density and fifth density and beyond. And it's a beautiful future, but it does mean letting go of those tribalistic second density fears that keep us locked into the past, and being willing to make that leap forward into the future and not being afraid of the future, as I think those STS entities in charge would love us to be. They would love for us to be terrified of the future and afraid of the future, and to have us go backwards instead of forwards.
Yeah.
As I believe we're going to be seeing in a few more passages. Does anybody else have anything to add on this passage before we change topics? Sounds good. Well, let us take a look at a passage about why the ape form. Why was the ape form chosen as the third density vehicle for our sublogos, as it were? This is from the Raw Contact in session 90, question 12. Don, the questioner, asked, was there a reason for choosing the forms that have evolved upon this planet? And if so, what was it? Ra, I am Ra. We are not entirely sure why our logos and several neighboring logoi of approximately the same space-time of flowering chose the bipedal, erect form of the second density apes to invest. It has been our supposition, which we share with you as long as you are aware this is our mere opinion, that our logos was interested in, shall we say, further intensifying the veiling process by offering to the third density form the near complete probability for the development of speech, taking complete precedence over concept communication or telepathy. We also have the supposition that the so-called opposable thumb was looked upon as an excellent means of intensifying the veiling process, so that rather than rediscovering the powers of the mind, the third density entity would, by the form of its physical manifestation, be drawn to the making, holding, and using of physical tools. I just find that endlessly fascinating and entertaining and hilarious that our sub-logos was trying to make it as difficult as possible for us to discover our mental powers and to learn how to communicate telepathically. They said, we got to make it harder for these guys. So they chose this form. They manipulated the jaw to like make it more likely that we would use speech. They gave us opposable thumbs so that we would like fixate on building tools and shit rather than like using our mental capacities. What do you think, Ben? Do you find this as entertaining as I do?
I think that it's quite the challenge for the spiritual being to come into this form of existence, I guess, because we have this this addiction to the material world, I guess, as beings, and because of our ability to manipulate physical reality just with these awesome hands, we lose the spiritual connection with the earth as well. So I think it's so like it says, the veil is that much thicker, and we're that much more disconnected from each other because we have to do this mechanical action of physical speech, which is quite ludicrous if you think about communication this way in a spiritual sense. But I feel like the hope is that when humanity makes the leap forward into fourth density, that we'll be much less reliant on the physicality beingness of being, because we'll be doing more work more in the emotional sense and spiritual sense. But so I think that yes, it is quite hilarious that that we're so enmeshed with this experience of existence within the third density illusion. And so yeah, I think that it's part of the challenge, and the trick is to stay connected to source and to the fact that we are all one and spirits. And I think the way to do that is to speak it into existence, and have groups like this who are awakened and talking about this side of things. And because it's the next step in our evolution as a species. So that's what I think, and it's quite a challenge, and we're seeing it right now play out. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of one of my favorite passages where Quo said that you're basically playing a game of the creator, playing hide and seek with itself, because the creator's been around for, let's just call it infinity. And it kept being too easy. The creator kept discovering itself. No matter how much the veil was there before, eventually it would rediscover itself. So what we're experiencing is the creator trying to make it a little bit more challenging and a little bit more fun for creator. And I just think that's hilarious. It makes the most tragic, horrific things now seem like, okay, that's an interesting way to look at it, different way. What do you think, Ashley? Any thoughts on anything here?
Just that I agree with what you shared, Ben and Jonathan. We're like playing the game on hard mode because of something. I mean, it seems simple. Okay, I'll throw in a thumb here and I'll make your jaw a little bigger there. But look at how intense it has made the experience, and just a little moment of how awesome is the creator to just make that slight adjustment and change the course of our entire experience. It's mind-boggling. But consider, all things considered, the fact that we have still come to this point, even with all of the thickness added to the veil of our experience, everyone should give themselves a pat on the back, because despite all of that, we still kind of woke up. We still came to the knowledge of the law of one, and against all odds. So,
and we haven't blown the planet up yet.
Yeah, yeah. So,
yay us!
Yay us! That's all. Yeah.
Yeah, well said. Absolutely, absolutely. I'd like the video game analogy. I keep thinking of video games these days, and I like what you're suggesting is that creator keeps creating more difficulty levels in the video game to make it more challenging and fun for itself, apparently. And anything to add, Yasi? Any thoughts, reflections, new metaphors?
Well, I think that it's what's interesting, especially like you're not even a scientist. If you looked at the ape and its great abilities, you would call all of those things that we're talking about incredible positive attributes. Like, we all grew up thinking, how incredible is it that, our ancestors had opposable thumbs, because without that, we wouldn't have gotten to make tools, and then our evolution would have been stunted. And how incredible was it that language was developed, because without that, maybe millions more years would have gone by. So we have always looked at those as like some of the greatest attributes of our ancestors that have led to our evolution and are like the reason that we're so advanced. But it's just funny and kind of comical to look at this and be like, oh, no, those were all veilings. Just, psych, like those are all actually things to make it harder for you to evolve. I just thought that was comical because,
It really helps being able to dolly the camera back and look at it from a more distant perspective, or to see it through creators' eyes. It does definitely change things and makes the intolerable a bit more tolerable, for sure. Does anybody have any other thoughts on this passage before we change topics and look at another passage? Let's take a look at something. Let's extend on something that we've already mentioned, and that is accelerated evolution. On February 26th, 2006, Quo said, and this has been edited for brevity, as third density conditions became prevalent on planet Earth, beings with this body type of the great ape continued to incarnate and live lives that were of a nature of a tribe or clan, seemingly unchanged from second density. However, the light of third density is that light which supports and encourages the development of the spirit complex. The probable course of development of these earth native entities that were now ensouled as they came into incarnation, but dwelling in these particular bodies, is unknown. For that evolutionary line was interrupted by those who felt it would be helpful to offer the third density entities of planet Earth a much improved physical vehicle, one in which the jaw was manipulated in order that speech was more possible more easily, and one in which an upright posture was more possible. To the adjustments to the body were added adjustments made to the mind complex in order to sharpen mental acuity. This experiment, shall we say, interrupted the normal course of evolution. In a way, it accelerated that evolution by making it far more possible for the body types of what you now are aware of as your human form to do the work of third density entities. They were more able to make tools. They were more able to think about the tools they made and to make changes to make them better. As the advantages mounted in the newfangled genetically adjusted human being, this type of being began to feel not at all humble, but rather began to be filled with the arrogance of that concept that is almost unknown within tribal societies, the feeling of arrogance, that feeling that not only do you have a place in nature, but that you may take whatever place you can defend and make it your own. The changes wrought by entities which were truly innocent of intention to do evil or to wreak negative consequences became that which was judged by the so-called Council of Nine as a disaster. There have been attempts made ever since these genetic adjustments were offered to the tribe of planet Earth's humans to make amends, to rebalance that which was done without awareness of the quite substantially difficult consequences of these changes. Super fascinating, I would think, for anybody who has not heard this part of human history on Earth. This is definitely not something that they teach you in high school biology or college biology, but for viewers who weren't aware of this, this genetic manipulation happened by the name of an Earth guardian known as Yahweh. We have not done a podcast episode on Yahweh yet, but we should because it is super fascinating. But Yahweh, I think, could be described as a guardian of the inner planes of this planet, meaning they're not some extraterrestrial entity that decided to muck around with and do genetic experimentation. They were entities that are considered of this planet that thought they would help speed things up a little bit, shall we say, in the evolution. But this was judged by the so-called Council of the Nine as a disaster. Another group that we have not yet done a podcast episode on, but is long overdue. I think it would be fair to say the Council of Nine are considered inner planes guardians, not just of this planet, but of this solar system, I think. So yes, just a fascinating thing, which we will unpack further. Let me shut up for now and ask Ashley, do you have any thoughts on anything here?
I am glad that this passage came up because it did come up in another Law of One discussion, and I was very surprised when I read it, and I had a moment where I was like, well, what might our collective experience be like if we had been allowed or free to continue on as we were? And might it be easier? Might it be better? Would we have already graduated as a collective? So I had this moment of like, how could you interrupt us? We were fine. Like, leave us. You should have left us alone. But then I think about it as, you know, all things are happening the way that they should, and perhaps in a all is in divine timing. So we were perhaps meant to have that experience. And I don't hold it against the Yahweh group, because if we read in the text in other areas, they were operating from the idea that they were helping, that this would be something of a positive, and it just so happened to not be. So those are my thoughts. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, who'd have thunk you could take the population from Mars that destroyed their own planet, transplant them here, make them superior to everybody else, and that nothing would happen bad from that. Yeah. Viewers who have no idea what I'm talking about, check out our podcast episode on Mars and Maldek. Goes a little bit more into that history. I think the fascinating part of this particular passage here, one of many fascinating parts, is this reference to Earth native entities who were here. I think questions have come up before in previous channeling sessions as far as, is there a race of people that are considered like indigenous to Earth, and like where else did everybody else come from? And I don't remember getting a real clear answer. I don't remember seeing real clear answers to what race is. But as I read this particular passage, I'm thinking, well, if we know in terms of biology that human life as we know it started in Africa, then I don't know, to me, it would seem those that we identify as African American or black-skinned Earth entities would be the indigenous Earth entities, and everyone else came from somewhere else. And that's my opinion. I could be wrong on that, but it seems to make sense. And it certainly gives a different perspective on racism and how white supremacy culture as we know it has come to be, and that, yes, perhaps they were part of that original genetically modified group that somehow felt they were superior to the entities, third density entities that were here before, and that has just continued to play out over the millennia, and obviously something that we're still trying to balance and figure out now as we move into fourth density, how to get along with those who have different skin color from us, perhaps. I don't know, do you have any thoughts on that, Ashley or Yasi? Yeah, go ahead.
I hadn't thought about the the identity of Earth natives before, but considering what we know about the age of beings found in Africa, they get older and older and older, thousands and thousands of years. I know I did one of those genetic tests, and I had ancestral links to the Mbenga, they've found them as old as like 50,000 years old. And I'm like, wow, that group has been here a very long time, and they keep getting older. So it does make sense that it's very possible those of African descent were of a group of Earth natives. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me at all. And I guess I should throw in there that I believe in the Only Planet of Choice, the collection of channeling transcripts of the Council of Nine that was channeled by Phyllis Schlemmer, who was working in partnership with Andrea Puharich, who was mentioned in the Raw Contact as one of two semi-undistorted sources of channelers of the Council of Nine. I think they did say specifically that, yes, the black race was, in fact, the indigenous Earth race, that everyone else came from elsewhere. And I believe that was one of the sessions that Gene Roddenberry of Star Trek sat in on, in fact, and was asking that question. So I don't know. Again, I'm just putting that out there, and folks viewing who have other sources of information, feel free to put comments in the comment section if you have other thoughts on it. Otherwise, Yasi, any thoughts on this or anything else from this passage?
I have a few notes and I can't remember if these came from Ross, so please, anybody watching or even you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but I do think that we definitely are one of the rare planets in our solar system that have like a very mixed like origin seeded race, you know, like as far as the whatever 75,000 year cycle of the 3D human race on this planet. And I think it's something like 50% of our seeded 3D came from Martians, you know, like you were saying, Jonathan, that's I think the race that the Confederation tried to strengthen by increasing their genetic capabilities and giving them more
Yahweh
like
did.
mental
Yeah.
abilities, which ended up being that Yahweh did, sorry. And then I think it's like 25% native, which, you know, to your point is probably what you guys are talking about. And then I think it's 25% other was like seeded from other 3D planets that their souls then came to Earth. I think this, I just had this in my notes and I think it's from Raw, but don't quote me on it. But what I do know is that we definitely have a mix of different, you know, soul groups, and it's one of the reasons that we're having such a hard time just, you know, coming together as one and, you know, pointing our compass in the same direction, or the needle of our compass in the same direction.
For
So
sure.
I think that that's definitely interesting. And to your point, Jonathan, the fact that like Yahweh group decided to manipulate the Martian solar, I guess they were obviously, as Ashley said, the intention was to do something good and was to help, which is always, you know, the intention. There have been a few times in history where like there's been help given, and a few of those have ended up not being for like, you know, not ending up the way I think the intention had been set, but it's kind of
Like the
heartwarming.
atom bomb, for example. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, or like they can, you know, coming down to the Egyptians and trying to give them the, you know, all those skills, and
Pyramids.
then realizing, yeah, or the pyramids. The intention's always sweet and loving and like, hey, like we're up here, we know more than you, so let's help you. And then sometimes it turns out it was not the right thing to do, but it's nice to know that even that high up, you can still have good intentions, but make, you know, like little stumbles, which the law of one would never look at as a mistake. But it is kind of funny that good intentions can result in sometimes not intended, you know, consequences. So
Well,
I
to their
find that.
credit, I do believe the Confederation did eventually figure out that if they give humanity anything designed to help them with their spiritual evolution, humanity is going to find a way to turn it into a weapon. I think the history of human
I
civilization
know.
pretty much confirms that. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is why they're only doing telepathic contact now.
Right.
It's like more of that shit.
They finally learned their lesson.
They finally learned through trial and error
Yeah.
and World War II. Yeah, yeah. Ben, any thoughts to add? Any insights?
Not so much. I think that I was really taken just by the sci-fi edge of this passage, because it implies that this Yahweh being is not perfect, is fallible, and made a misstep. So I think that you know, even Yahweh is also on their own evolutionary path, and their little misstep has caused this massive opportunity for growth and learning and exploring and experiencing for the one to see what it's like to be this this the created race of beings that that likes to turn everything into a weapon and has these thumbs that are separated from source and fixated on the illusion of the material world. So that's all I got. I think it's really intriguing to me, and it makes me very curious about this Council of Nine and what they're like and what they are made of, and it just makes me feel very small in the on the grand scale of things. Like we're just this little experiment, and they're kind of watching us like we're little creatures, and they're seeing if we're going to destroy ourselves or not. It's okay if we do, we do, and all is well because the spirit continues on. So it's
You don't really give a shit about anything, do you, Ben?
all is well, Jonathan. Don't forget.
The planet might blow up, but you know, it's a big universe. There's other specks of dust out there. Yeah, sure.
We are not these physical bodies, so it's okay. All is well.
Yeah.
It is really funny how all those Far Side cartoons about the Earth being basically a biology experiment or a
Yeah.
science fair exhibit for some higher extraterrestrial being is really true in so many more ways than any of us care to think about. There's been so much experimentation, including the time lateral, which I believe we're coming to shortly. Does anybody have any anything else on this passage to add before we change topics?
It just occurred to me that perhaps these so-called missteps are like I always feel like the infinite creator, intelligent infinity is like looking in the background and is always present and highly aware of the movings. And so maybe those missteps are the infinite creator, intelligent infinity itself, just moving and like we're all called back towards the one. So everything tries to move back to the source. So perhaps it is that the mystery within our beingness is like, hey, I could move faster back to the oneness if I do this. And so there's a little shift in the energy, and boom, Yahweh does something unexpected. But that's really the infinite creator moving in unseen and mysterious ways. So, yeah.
Yeah,
That,
that's pretty cool.
Could be.
No mistakes.
And if
Yeah.
we do end up blowing up the planet, you'll hear God saying, "Oops."
or he'll just wink, she'll just wink and be like, all according to plan.
Yep.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, yeah, no, much appreciated. It is so easy to get caught up in the drama and intensity of what's going on in late third density, early fourth density. So, really encourage folks to find a way to laugh and to be able to see the humor in otherwise dark situations. Developing a dark sense of humor is a real survival coping mechanism, I would say, for all of you wanderers out there.
Absolutely.
If you guys are ready, we've talked a fair bit about accelerated evolution. Let's talk a little bit about reverse evolution. Also from the Raw Contact, session 41, question 14, Ra said, the appropriate true color for third density is, as you have ascertained, yellow. However, the influences of the true color, green, acting upon yellow ray entities have caused many entities to revert to the consideration of self rather than the stepping forward into consideration of other self or green ray. This may not be seen to be of a negatively polarized nature, as the negatively polarized entity is working very intensively with the deepest manifestations of yellow ray group energies, especially the manipulation of other self for service to self. Those reverting to orange ray, and we may add, these are many upon your plane at this time, are those who feel the vibrations of true color green and therefore respond by rejecting governmental and societal activities as such and seek once more the self. For viewers who aren't real clear on all the color references here, if we go back to that density diagram we saw earlier, you could see that, yes, second density is colored orange, third density colored yellow, fourth density colored green. And this does, in fact, correlate with the energy centers or chakras of the orange ray or sacral chakra, which deals with personal identity and relationships with individual other selves. The yellow ray or solar plexus chakra, which deals with group identity, relationships with groups of other selves. And the green ray or heart chakra, which deals with universal unconditional love. Super fascinating as they are talking here in this passage. It would seem that as humanity is trying to make that leap from third density to fourth density, there are a significant number of third density entities that are saying that rather than moving forward into fourth density for whatever reasons, maybe because they're afraid, they find themselves reverting back into third density or even second density instincts, going back to the tribalistic instincts of our great ape ancestors, I believe is kind of what we're getting at. What do you think, Yasi? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, this is such I feel like it's so apropos, these two passages you've put here, because I think it's easy for all of us to concentrate on in this day and age on like what's going wrong or the service to self or the like, people who are not waking up. But this can almost speak to the people who consider themselves advanced or slightly awakened or enlightened. And I mean, I know and have friends that are in that circle who I would have considered, let's say, pacifists or a little bit more awake or enlightened. And to the left, let's say. And what I've realized recently is that this idea of the left, like if you take the left and just go far enough down the left, you get to the right, and to me that's like
It's circular.
and I
Is
didn't
that what
make
you're
that
saying?
concept. Yes, yes, for sure. I didn't make that concept up. I read that somewhere. And I think it's so true because what I feel like I'm seeing a lot of is the people whose intentions and core beliefs seem to be on the side of like service to others and, the green ray, but they've gone so far down into incorporating fear and judgment along with that, that now all of a sudden it's a kind of reverse evolution where they are also acting out of like anger and territorialism and fear instinct, and it feels very much like a reversal back out of awakening, and they basically are spewing out a lot of the things that initially they had set up to say were wrong actions and were service to self. So I think that if you're not careful, and I think that if you do revert back to fear and judgment, you begin to cloud the fourth ray. I heard something somewhere this week. It was a movie or something, and it said something like, if you remove fear and you remove judgment, what's left is love. And I think that you might think you're acting out of love, but if you pile on top of that fear and judgment, which the left is just as guilty of as the right is, you can cloud fourth ray as easily, I think. So I see it in that way, I guess. It's really interesting.
Interesting way to look at it. I'm not sure if I really saw so much of it on the political left as on the political right, but I
Hmm.
mean, obviously there's exceptions to every rule, and yeah, sure, no group is always superior or correct compared to the other group. But I know, I think it would be fair to say the service to self entities who are in charge, in control of our political, economic, social power structure, for sure, they're doing everything they can to keep us at war and divided and angry against each other. And I would say for sure, those on the political left who feel the need to fight those on the political right who could understandably and justifiably be termed Nazis, I think. But still, fighting is really still continuing to contribute to the problem that is keeping us from being able to graduate this constant, endless cycles of war and bellicosity. So, to some degree, yeah, I agree. It is a
Right.
challenge to refrain from the need to fight or battle.
Yeah. Well, it
Is
makes
that
me
what you're
think
referring
of
to?
Kind of. It makes me think of Martin Luther King's famous saying that like you can't fight hate with hate and you can't fight darkness with darkness. You can only fight hate with love and you can fight darkness with light, right? Like, but I think if you're not careful, you can easily go down the path of fear and judgment and hate and darkness. And that's a reverse evolution for anybody, right?
For
We're not
sure.
immune to it.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. Ben, anything to add?
Uh, yeah, not that much really. I think Yazi has said a lot of what I feel already. I think that I th I think part of it is comes from this illusion that there's not enough of everything for everyone, and so that's where this idea of separation kind of ekes its way in. I think it comes from trauma that we've experienced as civilization when people have starved to death and been persecuted, and so because of that, I think it causes this imbalance where there's there's this idea that there's not enough of resources for everyone to thrive in this planet, when I think that's not the case, and we're just out of balance. And so it's an illusion again, that's caused by trauma, that those are who are in power are carrying, and so it's replaying out again and again and again. And so I don't know how to get that wheel to stop necessarily, but I think part of it is just waking up and being aware of it. And I'm getting very kind of in the weeds here with my concepts, but I think that it all comes back to having empathy and compassion and recognizing the other as the self, and that the way forward is actually
Yeah.
carrying that concept. And so
Yeah.
that's all on this right now.
Well, you mentioned something about stopping wheels, and that definitely reminds me of stopping the wheels of karma, which Ron Quo have said many, many times that forgiveness is the key to stopping the wheels of
Right.
karma. So I agree 100%. I mean, it goes back to those tribalistic instincts from great apes of hoarding resources in times of scarcity. And I think it's fairly clear and obvious to me that those entities in charge of our political power structure are deliberately keeping us in those need of resources and cutting off funding and support and making people go hungry for sure, because they realize, they know that's our instincts. We're going to go at each other's throats in order to hoard resources in times of scarcity. So you could get really pissed at it, and I've gotten really pissed at it before, but I think, as you are correctly pointing out, even acknowledging that that is indeed what's happening, the key is to forgive them, for in some sense, as you said, they know not what they do. They're just doing it subconsciously, following instinctual behaviors that have been reinforced time and time and time again. Anything to add, Ashley? Any thoughts, reflections?
I agree with you, Jonathan and Ben, that the key to stopping that wheel is the compassion, is the forgiveness. It's the green ray. It's the love. That's what stops it. There was an article I read recently where a woman was being persecuted for feeding people who were homeless from her front lawn. The HOA and everybody was trying to come for her because they didn't want undesirables to be lowering property values in the neighborhood. But she said that as she was being threatened with all of this litigation, those on the other side of her neighborhood who had all of the Trump signs up, and those on the other side who had the opposite, like left-leaning signs up, they came together and supported her, and they would just put food in the refrigerator for people to continue to come. The big MAGA guy, he pulled out all of his extension cords and connected it from his house so that she could continue to do this service. And they came together, both sides, because of a love for other selves, because of the belief that it was important to care for others more than their own ideals and positions. So I feel like the base of that is love. Love is what allows you to say, okay, you think this way, you believe that way, you're doing these things that I disagree with, but I love you anyway. And that's what the key is. Ross said it, that the salvation of your civilization is this all-consuming, unconditional, irrational love for one another, because we see that unity. And to the passage, I do see a very beneficial form to the regression, because when we're in, even though we're in green ray, as we're looking so much out to other selves, sometimes we can begin to neglect that self-reflection and to check in with our own beingness. So I see, for those who do revert back into orange ray while on the path, it will cause those moments of self-reflection where you're thinking about you, how you think and how you feel, and your catalyst will put you in that mode if it's necessary. And then after that moment of orange ray reflection, then you bounce back into yellow ray consideration, and you're looking at your friends, your family, your coworkers. And because you reverted into orange ray, you have a new perspective from the evolving of yourself as you focused on the self. And then when you go back into green ray, now you have a more balanced perspective because you went back into orange to clean out and reflect on you in the orange. And then it colored how you interacted with other selves in the groups. And now you're a more, what does Ko say? You're a more 360-degree being, more rounded. So I believe we do that dance. It's like bouncing between the keys, like a tone poem, as Ross said that we are. So I see benefits to that, even in the collective where people are becoming disillusioned with government and rejecting societal norms, and it's putting them back in orange ray. Some people never check in with themselves, and there's wounds and baggage and hurt and programming, and so they need to revert to go into the next ray with more awareness and more efficiency and evolution. Sorry for talking so much.
What a beautiful way to look at it. I really appreciated everything that you said. That had never occurred to me at all. I had never thought of anything like that, but everything you said makes perfect sense to me, and I think helps me look at it a little bit more compassionately or understandingly than I might have otherwise. I think the thought had crossed my mind sometime in the last few minutes as somebody was talking that in many ways, it's kind of like school. I mean, in many ways, Quo has said, this is a school of souls and you're here to learn the lessons of love. And in many ways, it is kind of like we are in third density is kind of like the end of elementary school, and fourth density is kind of like the beginning of junior high school. And there's a significant leap to be made. And there are some kids who are really excited and looking forward to going to junior high. And there's other kids who maybe are a little bit afraid. It's a way bigger school and more challenging, and maybe they're afraid and would rather stay where they're at or go back to kindergarten where it was a lot more comfortable for them and such. So I think maybe that fear of moving forward and taking that leap forward, I can see that and I can understand it. And again, I would only encourage folks to just think of this as growth and becoming the person that you are meant to be, and that it's okay. It's okay. But that process that you described, Ashley, I think is really beautiful and could very well be an important part of it. Did anybody have any other thoughts, reflections on this passage before we change topics into something really interesting? Sounds good. Well, let us go ahead and take a look at something that is called time laterals and space pirates. This is without a doubt one of the weirdest but most intriguing parts of the Law of One I have seen in my years. It seems like something that came out of a science fiction movie, but apparently it's real. Have not seen any mention of anything like this in any other New Age metaphysical material, but it's something that was discussed several times in L&L research channeling sessions back in the early 2000s. So before we get into the passage where they're referencing great apes, let's go over a little bit of background information on this. As has been mentioned a few times, graduation or harvest is when an individual or an entire planetary population as a whole makes that quantum leap from one density to the next. And in our case on Earth, we're talking about the leap from third density to fourth density. Third density is called the density of choice because the whole point of third density incarnation, the meaning of human life, shall we say, is to make a choice, to choose between the path of service to others, or STO for short, or service to self, STS for short. To graduate on the service to self path, apparently, you have to achieve a vibration level of at least 95% service to self, meaning, to put it in simplified terms, you're spending at least 95% of your waking hours thinking only of yourself and how to manipulate or control others for your own personal gain and power, and not spending more than 5% of your waking hours thinking of the needs or well-being of others. To graduate on the service to others path, you have to achieve a vibration level of at least 51% service to others, meaning you're thinking of the needs and well-being of others at least a little bit more than your own. And if you do not make a choice, or you do not polarize enough, you simply repeat third density. And it looks like it's going to be on another planet after this, because Earth is going to be a fourth density planet. Moving the needle is a term that's been used more than a few times in channeling sessions to provide a visual of what's going on planet Earth from a Law of One perspective. The diagram shows the full range of polarity from 100% service to self to 100% service to others. And as you can see, the graduation for requirement for service to self is 95% service to self, 5% service to others. The graduation requirement on the service to others path is 49%, at least 49% service to self, and at least 51% service to others. The area in between is known as the sinkhole of indifference. It's made up of the vast majority of the population who either didn't even know that there was a choice to be made, or did in fact make a choice, but didn't polarize far enough in either direction to graduate on either path. It is kind of like a black hole that people have a really hard time escaping. So Quo once said the default setting for most Earth entities is 75% service to self, 25% service to others, meaning most people probably spend about 3/4 of their waking hours thinking about their own needs, well-being, desires, and so on, and probably not more than 25% thinking about the well-being or needs of others. So it's important to note that graduation or harvest happens both for individuals and for humanity as a collective. So as you may or may not know, there are many service to others entities, including you who are probably watching this on video, who are trying to help humanity choose as a collective to live in a world based on love and equality of all others, regardless of whether they know about the Law of One or not. And there are a lot fewer, but a significant number of service to self individuals who are trying to get humanity to choose to live in a world based on fear, war, and enslavement of all others. I think it would be fair to say those STS entities know that the vast majority of people would rather live in a world based on love, kindness, and peace instead of a world based on fear, cruelty, and war. So their strategy is apparently to keep people in a perpetual state of fear, anxiety, war, distraction, spiritual sleep, so that they never have the time or inclination to think of anything other than bare survival. And if that plan fails, their plan is to blow up the planet, as they have done on so many other planets before this. They figure if they can't make humanity graduate on the negative path, at least they can keep them from graduating on the positive path. Hence, the history of humanity for thousands of years has been and continues to be a tug of war between positive and negative entities and energies, with the needle swinging back and forth, not yet able to achieve and sustain enough positive polarity to graduate. This is what you could say is happening on Earth if you dolly back and look at it from a distance. This brings us to the time lateral. The entity known as Quo has noted more than a few times that something called a time lateral was created a long time ago by the guardians of this planet. They've described it as being like a sidetrack of a railroad, where time and space have literally been slowed down in order to give humanity more time and more opportunities to choose the positive path of service to others and to graduate to fourth density, both as individuals and as a collective. But apparently there are fifth density negative entities that Carlo Ruckert jokingly referred to as space pirates, who have been doing all they can to keep that from happening, and instead to keep us in a perpetual state of war, because they literally feed on vibrations of war and bellicosity. If you want more details on this, check out the podcast episode on time laterals and space pirates. It's super cool and weird and fascinating, and you'll see a lot more about it. Otherwise, let's take a look at this passage from December 19th, 2005. Quo said, and this has been edited for brevity, You have opportunistic entities of a negative polarity from fifth density who have discovered that there is a characteristic of this planet which is unusual and of which they may take advantage. They are busily doing that and have been doing so for some of your time. The situation about which we speak is this. As we have said before, the planetary population is made up not only of those entities who are native to your planet. For the most part, and for the great majority, your planetary population consists of those who have been imported from other failed third density planetary cycles. Many of those upon your planet, then, are those who have either destroyed their planet completely through acts of war using advanced technology, or are those who have, for one reason or another, been unable to finish out their normal cycles upon their native Earths. Therefore, you have adopted each other as a kind of mixed bag, shall we say, of many differing planetary origins. This means that you had the attempt to integrate many differing subconscious or archetypical systems of looking at and structuring information. You do not have a homogeneous population. You have a population that has enormous difficulty in communicating because of the great variety of those groups speaking in terms of planetary origins among its tribe. For if entities such as your group are unable to clear the population of your planet from this lateral, there are ways in which the negatively oriented entities have every hope of keeping the time lateral viable. It would no longer be attached to the main track. That opportunity shall soon be closed. Nevertheless, those that believe that they are in the appropriate place for themselves could choose to remain not polarized either positively or negatively, but simply as those who would remain on third density Earth as it reverts to late second density. These entities would no longer be enlivened by third density entities who have the power of free will that could make the choice of service to self or service to others. They would be instinctual great ape type beings who look like you do because that is the genetic pool that now exists upon planet Earth. However, these entities would simply be slaves of a kind that spent their lives living the life much as you now experience it, a life without a good deal of variety, a life that is not concerned with coming into harmony as a planetary system, but is only concerned with the tribe of its family and its clan, with protecting the resources of that family and clan, and of defending that family and clan. What the fifth density entities, which you may call, as this instrument has jokingly done, space pirates, have in mind is simply to have a continuing harvest of food, that food being fear. You may see the creation of an atmosphere of fear in your governmental systems, in your present culture. There is in progress a desperate gamble on the part of negative entities, as we had mentioned before, to attempt to hijack the time lateral. Getting information more globally available is the best means of creating a balance to the situation that makes it impossible for this gamble to work. The best help the negative entities have, however, is not negative entities as much as it is the deep sleep of those who are unawakened at this time. It is to the interest of the negative entities that that sleep be continued as untroubled, as peaceful as possible. Like I said, it sounds like something that came from a science fiction movie, and it would be a really great movie. I would love to see John Carpenter or Tim Burton or somebody make this movie. But apparently, it's a reality. So, yeah, just so much to unpack from this. What do you think, Ben? Any thoughts to start with?
Yeah, lots. That's I keep saying it, but there's a lot to unpack here, and I think I think fear is a tricky thing because fear in itself is it's kind of a it's an illusion. It's an illusion in a way because if all is well and if we are these indestructible, ever existing beings who will just keep evolving through time and through space, and then it's almost a game to to succumb to these space pirates who are feeding on fear. So I don't know. I think it's easy to understand. It's you can see how you would want they would want the humanity to stay asleep and unbothered. But I think that one thing that I took from this is that a way to get out of it is to become more global and recognize the fact that we're all in this together. You know, they say the astronauts, when they come back to Earth after seeing how small the planet looks by itself, when you're further away out in space, you see that we're all in this together, and we're all down here together, and we're all evolving together. And so I just keep coming back to empathy and compassion, and I feel like I don't know how to, like, how do you help these other beings become aware of that you don't have to be afraid, and that there is enough resources for everyone, and we can all get by together down here.
That's why I created this podcast, Ben, for exactly that purpose, and that's why I asked you to be on it. Yeah.
So I think that's the way through is to hit those who are projecting this fear speech dead on, and say that this isn't the reality, and it doesn't have to be this way. And you can turn off your TV and turn off the news and read a book instead, or go out and walk the beach, or out in the woods, and see that things are actually not as bad as they would have you believe. And I think that's another way of wakening up, is just reconnecting with the earth itself. And I'm all over the place here, so I'll pass it on to Ashley and Yazi.
No, everything you said makes sense, and I like giving people the time to process their thoughts, because everybody does it in a different way. And like I said, everything you made sense. And yes, getting information more globally available is indeed why we're doing what we're doing on the podcast right now. Coincidentally enough, today is November 1st. Yesterday was Halloween, and Ghostbusters 2 was on TV. And I don't know if anybody has seen Ghostbusters 2, but this is basically the plot of it. There's some sort of negative entities that are feeding on vibrations of fear. And when the Ghostbusters realize it, they realize that positive vibrations kind of chase them away and helps overpower them. So they play some really great dance music and get new workers to sing along with them, and so on and so on. And yeah, I mean, I think that is the case indeed. And that's kind of what we are doing right now, is to try to, I think once you realize that you're getting played, and I think that's the purpose of sharing this passage, realizing that, oh, okay, wow, all this stuff that's going on is happening very intentionally, because there would appear to be fifth density entities that do indeed want to keep us in a perpetual state of war and anxiety and paranoia and fighting over scarce resources, because they literally feed on those vibrations of fear. So not feeding into that is probably the best way to do it. As long as you know the game that's happening, then you don't get gamed so much. What do you think, Ashley? Any thoughts?
I liked all of the suggestions you gave, Ben, because sometimes other selves don't know where to start. And sometimes you need someone to say, hey, just turn it off. Just disconnect. That's so important. That's the first step, so that you can actually hear yourself think. So, and actually going out with Gaia and spending time on Earth, all of those are beautiful, practical examples of how you can begin to disengage from feeding the beast, essentially, with your fear and emotions. I'm very grateful that there's so much love and we have so much support outside of this physical reality, that they literally created a time lateral for us to have more time. Think about, how do you even begin to fashion a whole separate line of time, space, dimensional something for us to do that? How much love and energy, and how many thousands of beings had to form that for us? So big thanks to all those aspects of divinity, of the infinite creator, who love us so much to create that for us. And yes, Jonathan, what you were saying about, once you're awake to what's going on, that does cut the feed of you giving all your, being food for them, essentially. And it is, I do feel like, as far as what we can do, the Confederation always shares that, and even Ross said this, when one awakens, when one is made aware, all are made aware, because we're connected. So I think a big part is how we live our own lives, whenever we don't give in to fear, whenever we sit down in meditation, when we are kind to others, all of those little acts add up, I feel, and ripple out. So we can, whether the action is outward or inward, it is still having an effect, plus the law of squares on top of that. So we all individually have so much power with every little thought we think, every little feeling. I remember Latwi was sharing in an older transcript that at various times the pulse is taken of every individual heart and consciousness. So if within your heart there is peace, even if there's chaos around, that is still being counted towards pushing Earth into fourth density proper and assisting all other selves. So just wanted to share that. And there's other stuff, but I will I will leave it to
I will yield the floor to the delegate from Houston. Yeah. No, I appreciate your sharing that, Ashley. It reminds me of, I don't know if this was the passage that you were referring to, but it's the one about the straw vote, where they said at some point a straw vote will be taken of the tribes of humanity to decide, do you want to live in a world based on love and kindness and peace, or do you want to live in a war based on fear, bellicosity, and cruelty? I mean, basically, service to self or service to others. And I believe that passage is in our episode on time laterals, so check it out, viewer, if you're interested.
Okay.
Otherwise, that story that you shared earlier, I think is a great example of how there's so many beautiful, positive things happening that you're not going to hear about in the news or on TV. And yet it is super encouraging to realize there's just millions of lights turning on and flowers blooming. And yeah, it's good reason for it to be hopeful. Yasi, anything to add?
You guys all gave such amazing descriptions and analyses of, I think, something that's a pretty difficult subject matter. I, for some reason, just keep this, by the way, is one of my favorite, like, symbolic movies is Disney's Sleeping Beauty, like the original Disney Sleeping Beauty. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it. If you haven't, I highly suggest you watch it, especially now, like knowing all this stuff. But there are so many symbolic things in that whatever animated movie. And a lot of it is exactly what we're touching on in this thing, where it's like there is a negative entity, it wants something pure and good. Fear surrounds that pure thing and decides to sort of like, out of fear, not let it know what's going on. Like if you guys remember the story, but the little angels like take the beautiful girl away in the forest and decide, let's just keep her away from all that evil and that dark intention. And so they never tell her that that even exists, and she doesn't have the chance to know for herself and to be aware and to be conscious, I guess. And so when the time comes and they reintroduce her back to society, she's very susceptible to being put under a spell, or like hypnotized, and ends up going in the direction of that fear anyway. And especially because I think she doesn't know, and then is kind of put under a spell because of it. And the only thing that can save her or wake her up is love, which is embodied in the form of the prince, who's kind of like fighting the dragons, trying to get to her and wake her up again. And in the meantime, it's funny because in the meantime, the little angels go around and put all the regular people to sleep. Like they put them all to sleep. And it kind of makes me think of the time lateral. It's like, let's just give a lot more time for this story of like love fighting, against the dark, to wake all of us up. Like that's all there is. Like love is the thing that's going to win over everything. Let's not be hypnotized and put under a spell. It is all an illusion. And if we know about it and if we are together on it, we're less likely to be susceptible to these space pirates or the evil queen or whoever it is who's trying to like put us under a spell.
That is fascinating. I have seen Sleeping Beauty and I remembered it, but wow, I never looked at it that way. I never saw any law of one or spiritual teachings in there. So yeah, fascinating. Let me know when you're done analyzing Bambi. I'd love to hear what you come up with on that one. Yeah.
I like highly suggest you just go one night and Smoke weed if you want to, and just sit there and watch Sleeping Beauty because it's like, oh my God, I never
Wow, I'll
realized that's what
definitely
I
try
was
that.
watching
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
was 10. Anyways, I
I
love
love The Lion King. That is probably one of my favorite
Oh, that's
Pixar
a
Disney
yeah. I have to
animations.
go back and watch that. That one's so full of symbolism too.
For sure, for sure. And we could spend the rest of our 2 hours talking about Disney movies, but
We should do a Disney movie one.
yeah, field trip. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Anyways,
I believe I had one more set of passages to look at before we wrap things up. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to add on this one before we do that?
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of these fifth density entities that are like parasites and like how does their evolution go? Like, are they stuck? Like, I wonder. This is just me thinking out loud. You guys don't have to answer because you don't know. But I just wonder, like, how do they evolve as a fifth density being? Like, you're kind of stuck in this service to self path if you're
I
existing
would
in
think
this
it's
thing.
part of the growth on the service to self path, the manipulation of third density entities for your own benefit. I would think that's
yeah,
just
I'm
part of the
sure.
path.
Yeah.
Especially if you're fifth density, right? Because in fifth density, they're big adepts in the negative polarity. They're basically just like sequestered by themselves and spending a lot of time increasing their powers. And that's probably one of the ways they do it. They find all these people in third density to serve them, basically. Again, if you go to Sleeping Beauty, there's this part in the cave where she's standing there and
Jesus
all of her like
Christ.
all of the like little minions are under her, all the little like goblins, you know?
Wow, it just there's layer upon layer,
I'm
does
telling
it?
you. Actually, Ben, it's funny that you're saying this because it's something interesting came up, which goes back to the passage itself, because we are talking about great apes, and I think we forget that that was part of the subject matter. But um, it's an interesting thing to think that the more you're susceptible to these like space pirates, the more you're vulnerable, let's say, and fearful, and they can get you on that fear, they can feed on that fear, the more it seems like you revert to that like instinctually driven great ape form, right? It's you become more just that version of your ancestral being, which they're saying here in these passages, like you're actually gonna literally incarnate as like that version at some point if it gets to that. But
Right.
you do it even here on this earth. Like if you have enough distortions and you haven't shed light on them and they're able to get you on those distortions, you become so much more like that ape-like instinctual being, I
Oh,
think.
for sure. Yeah, that's why I was laughing at that part of the first paragraph where they said these entities would simply be slaves of a kind who
Right.
spent their lives living a life much as you know
That you
experiencing.
do.
Not really that much different.
No.
Like, yeah. Yeah, I get it.
Exactly.
I totally get it. Yeah. Except in this case, there would be no chance for evolution. You would be
Right.
like stuck in there forever.
I know
So,
that's crazy to think
Yeah.
about.
yeah. Yeah, I've been to enough staff meetings in my life. I don't need any more of that shit. I am done for sure.
Forever.
Anybody else have any other thoughts on this passage before we move on?
One quickly, it makes sense if it makes sense as to why this civilization template has always been so resistant to change, because at the highest echelons, these entities know that the changing and the accepting of new ways of being puts us more towards service to others, puts us more towards the green ray. Restriction or control, as Ra has said, is the way of the negatively polarized entity. But when we are open to change, that is acceptance, which is the way of the positively polarized entity. So when we look at history, people fought tooth and nail to keep the earth flat, and they fought tooth and nail to keep people from certain ethnic backgrounds from reading and writing. And even now, whenever there's a change to science or a change to just the way we live, there's this instant imposition of no, don't change, stay right here, control, control. That's a calling card of the negative polarity at the highest echelons. So it just makes sense as to why they want to control so much, because that feeds fear and the instinct that Yasi was saying. It's more food for them.
for sure.
That's amazing. So true.
Yeah, there was somebody on the Q&A with Jim McCarty today, actually, who was asking, as has many people have asked before, if service to self entities know that their path is going to merge with the service to others path eventually in mid-sixth density, why do it? Why follow it? And to me, I think the answer is obvious. It's like feeling of power. Wow. I mean,
Yeah,
it is
totally.
the feeling of that you are the one infinite creator and that you have
Yeah.
ultimate control power. What's not to enjoy about
Yeah,
that? I totally get it.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I
totally.
think about that often. Yeah. Never goes anywhere, but yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get it. I mean, it's not a path I would choose. It's
No.
full of loneliness
Yeah.
and hatred and darkness, and there is no love for others or from others to be found. And
Yeah.
it's not something I would wish on my worst enemies. But
But it's
do
understandable.
appreciate,
Yeah.
as others have said, I appreciate those who are willing to do that, even in those who are inflicting the most heinous kind of cruelty on people now in our time.
Yeah.
They are helping the creator, and in that sense, all of us to understand what the full limits of the dark are as well as the light. And in that sense, it's good. And it's making it easier for folks who have been up to this point in the sinkhole of indifference to finally like maybe polarize and think of others more. So
That's a really good point, actually. I never thought about that being as one of the intentions, but
well,
as
I'm
a
sure
way to
it's not
be
their intention,
up. Yeah.
but that is the
Yeah.
result of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of amazing. I never thought about that.
And that's why I don't like, that's why I have gratitude and I don't default into anger and resentment. I mean, it takes time to get there, but
Yeah.
I don't default into that anymore because I'm like, wow, because you are doing what you're doing, I can see the light more clearly because you are, I am. And that
Yeah,
For
you,
sure.
yeah,
that, that's
You're
amazing.
teaching me how to love unconditionally people
Yeah.
who I have not been exposed to this kind of shit before, to make me love you unconditionally. I mean, that, in many ways, it's a blessing. It's a,
yes.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's a really good point. That's really interesting.
Well, let's have this conversation 2 years from now and see how we feel about it. For now, let's wrap this up with a passage about what is known as the 100th monkey effect. For those who are not familiar, the 100th monkey effect is a hypothetical phenomenon where a new behavior or idea spreads rapidly by paranormal means once a critical number of individuals adopt it. It suggests that once that critical mass is reached, the new idea or behavior transcends the need for physical transmission and spreads through telepathy or some form of metaphysical collective consciousness. It's based on observations of macaque monkeys on Kojima Island in Japan, washing sweet potatoes in water to remove sand. It is not accepted by the scientific community, but it has been accepted and affirmed by the entity known as Quo. So on July 16th, 2005, Quo said, efforts such as this group's Gaia Meditations, occurring daily, are one such crystalline effort which has indeed, over a period of your years, begun to affect the planet. Its choice of a non-location oriented, daily witness to prayer and meditation on behalf of the planet has created an energy which is common to many points upon, or shall we say, close to your planetary surface, which are yin rather than yang, shall we say, in their energy focus, which have represented or created the opportunity for, shall we say, the infection of larger groups of entities by the enthusiasm felt by individuals and becoming a part of the Gaia meditation. These non-local points of love call in a way we cannot describe rationally to the awakening process within those who have not yet made their choice, acting as what this instrument would call snooze alarms, to bring them to some point of increased wakefulness where they are more close to being able to see what this instrument would call the bigger picture of who they are and why they wish to wake up and what they wish to do when they wake up. However, that point where the 100th monkey effect is triggered has not yet occurred. There is not yet quite the mass of light workers awake. And so the plight, basically, is to call people to awakening without infringing upon their free will. May we say that those who are service to self-oriented among your peoples and are in positions of power or in positions of leadership are attempting very consciously to entrain people's minds and hearts in fear, in anger, in aggression, and in fear-based actions such as attempting to control resources. The seductive qualities of these energies lie in the simple facts of the high second density values such as those as known to the great apes, which are that of second density vehicle within which each of you now experiences life. These service to self-oriented entities are well aware that their stated values echo instinctual values of the great ape body, and in and of themselves do not trigger a warning to the mind of the second density body. It is perfectly naturally and entirely instinctual behavior within the great ape to protect the clan and the family, to gather resources that it will need, and to defend against those who would disturb it. To awaken into third density itself is the challenge for the consciousness carried by the second density body. The consciousness of third density is, by its very nature, not only of the self, but its instincts are to seek love, to seek to be loved, and to seek to become one. However, by repetitive experiences in empire, your peoples have acquired habits of mind which mitigate against a full awakening into the awareness of self as the choice-making self. And so the tendency of your planetary population has repeatedly been to give its power away to those who are skilled at the processes of creating empire. Therefore, at this time, the plight remains to help those who have been repeatedly a failure at waking up to become a success this time. The great challenge, then, is to be a force in helping people to wake up without in any way infringing upon their free will. The choice to leave the precincts of fear and to step forward boldly into the unknown territory of unconditional love, release of judgment, and the embrace of all entities is formidable. The habit of doing so is not there. If you succeed, and we succeed, in creating that 100th monkey effect, there is the opportunity in these next few years of awakening a large number of your peoples to their possibilities and of bringing people fairly rapidly into a state where they are able to graduate. It is a possibility that has an increasing probability vortex. All of you and all of those who are awakening at this time have a tremendous potential to change the face of your planet and to help many, many entities to take hold of who they truly are. We can only say with great humility that we are very glad to be a part of this effort, and we thank each of you who has dedicated the life experience to the awakening of Earth and its peoples. It truly does begin with each of you, and this is a time when a relatively small number of entities can make a pivotal difference in the harvest. Such a beautiful passage and so many different things to look at in there. I just really love the ending part where they say that a relatively small number of entities can make a pivotal difference in the harvest. That is certainly why we're on this podcast and doing what we're doing and trying to encourage and inspire others. Any thoughts on anything here, Ashley?
I agree with you at how beautiful and inspiring this is. And for me, I do see examples of the startings of something very big in terms of the awareness of humanity. A simple example is how widespread and accepted the concept is of meditation, and how there is a very real scientific consideration being given to our autistic brothers and sisters who are displaying abilities that go into the non-physical, which in and of itself begins to present this idea that there is more to reality than we think. And although that might seem like a simple consideration, it leads to seeking, which our Confederation friends are always telling us that's where it begins. That first questioning, that first, maybe there's something more, and how that leads to everything else. So I'm seeing in little ways that we are inching towards inducing the 100th monkey effect. Those were just two little examples, but there are many, many others that I see every day. And also, this passage called to mind the power of the individual. If we think about our bodies and minds, we're each little universes. So everything we do, whether it's a kind smile, whether it's offering a loving word, whether it's meditating like we do with the Gaia Meditations, all of it is having an effect, a very real effect. So I just feel a moment of inspiration and empowerment from this.
I'm feeling inspiration and empowerment from what you just said. That was so beautiful. So many things. We could spend 2 more hours unpacking everything there. Yasi, anything to add? Any thoughts, reflections on what Ashley said or anything in the reading passage?
Beautiful, Ashley, and beautiful passage. And I just want to thank you, Jonathan, for being one of those people who is making a pivotal difference in the world, because what you've done just by putting this podcast together is incredible. And to bring all these people together is amazing. So thank you for
Appreciate your
doing.
being on it. You're a big part of it, my friend. And Ben
I'm
and Ashley.
honored. And actually, Ashley, it's interesting what you're saying, because I totally agree with you. And I'm looking at the date of this quote, and it's 20 years ago. So I wonder what quote would say about the 100th monkey effect now. Like, I wonder if they took the temperature of where we are now, what would they say? And they probably have spoken to it, but I totally agree with you. I feel like it's easy to focus on everything that's going wrong, but if you look around you, there's also so much that's going in the path of awakening. There are so many more people that are ready to have those conversations, or at least curious. There's so many people talking about, self-actualization and self-realization and getting life coaches. And even if it doesn't sound very spiritual, it is at least something in the direction of seeking and trying to become one, which is the goal of all of the souls on earth. So I'm hopeful. I really am. I think that it's nice to know that you being you, and if that means constantly trying to seek the light within you and just be and walking around and just exuding that wherever you go, and not even doing anything actionable, but just being the light, that can have effects on everybody you meet, and then maybe they carry that light forward. It makes you feel way more powerful than you think you are. So it's very uplifting. I feel like we've come full circle from the first passages we read.
Yeah, agreed 100%. And that's a good reminder that we had a podcast episode on light workers a few weeks ago that touched on a lot of the things that you shared. And it's a good reminder that, as you said, every single person on the planet is the one infinite creator. And as powerless as one might feel to change political systems or events or whatever, have the power to change the world just through, as you said, being yourself and radiating the light of the one infinite creator in the way that you do best. And it's unique for each person. It's a beautiful thing. Ben, anything to add?
The three of you have already made such beautiful points already, but I can just add, I think it's important to hold that idea that I don't even know where I'm going. I think it's not our job to wake everyone up. It's not our job to proselytize the law of one. I think basically what Yazi was just saying, the fact that you have this knowing, and like when I first came into contact with the law of one, it resonated so truthfully with me that I was at a point in my life where I was ready for it, and I think as a society, I think humanity is slowly wending their way to this discovery that we're so much more than these physical bodies that have this one little 100-year life on this one little planet. We're much greater than that, and everyone, the majority of society might still be asleep and unaware of this fact, but just the fact that there are those of us in this call and out in society who are aware and awakened to the fact that we're so much more than just these one little beings who have these short little lives. It's great, and I think that there is so much exciting things that are happening out there in the world and in science. Even right now, I was just reading today about how this comet 3I Atlas has just come from around the edge of the sun, and it's moving much faster than they expected it to be. And the scientists, people on Reddit, are kind of talking about it a little bit, but the fact is that this thing is moving in a way that is not normal for a comet. So that has a lot of questions, and that makes a lot of people wonder, like, what's going on here, and how come we haven't seen any of these images from NASA that supposedly were supposed to come out a few weeks ago? It's again, we're talking about how trend-breaking information kind of gets stifled and shut down, and this is happening right now with 3I Atlas, I think, in my opinion. So, and what does that lead to? What's the greater question? Like, where, it makes you question where did that come from? What is behind it? And it gets people thinking outside of this small 2D box that we're in. So,
For sure.
I think we're on the edge, and I think as society seems to get more hammered by, these fascistic ideologies that are taking over in our not just the U.S. but all over the world, I think it's pushing us forward in a way that's going to force humanity to evolve, and it's going to happen through trauma and struggle. But that's how you grow, and that's how society is growing. So, and I think what matters is that we are down here and we hold the light and keep the faith, and keep talking about these things, and recognizing that we're more than these human bodies, and we are spiritual beings, having the human experience on this little blue ball. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, everything you said makes perfect sense. I got nothing to add to that. I did want to add for our viewers the references to the Gaia Meditations there in the beginning of the passage, in case you did not know. Gaia Meditations were something that were started by Carla and Jim back in 2001, shortly after the 9/11 attacks. They were asking Quo what they could do to help, and that was something that Quo encouraged us to do. So it is something that has happened pretty much every day since then at about the same time. If you go to the L&L Research website, click on Connect, and then scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see a little bit more information on the Gaia Meditation. For now, suffice it to say, it's held daily at about 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, and they have a link to a time zone converter if you want to find out when that is. And it usually lasts between 5 and 15 minutes. But yeah, the law of squares applies here. So it's something that anybody can do if they want to add their vibrations to everyone else. It's just a prayer for Mother Earth. It's a prayer for world peace. It's a prayer for fourth density. It's a prayer for service to others. And it's a chance to do that together as a group. So I'm sure anyone could do it at any time of day. It really doesn't matter when you do it. I'm sure it adds to the law of squares. But I have an instinct, a hunch, that there is something a little extra oomph when you do actually do it at that time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it could be tomorrow. It could be next week. It could be 100 years from now. It could be 1,000 years from now. Still works together through time-space. So encourage folks to do that. That is why we do the Seattle Law of One study group. That does meet Tuesdays at 3 to 5 p.m. so that we can join that 3:30 Gaia meditation time every Tuesday. So encourage you to join if interested. Did anybody else have anything to add on this passage before we wrap things up?
I just wanted to add on the YouTube channel of L&L Research, Jim recorded a Gaia meditation that you could play at that time or just whenever you have time throughout the day. It's there.
That's
Thank you.
great.
And if I can remember, I'll put a link to it in the comment section. Anybody else? Anything to add? Sounds good. So where do we go from here? What are some good takeaway lessons that we might have from our roughly 2-hour discussion now? I have 4 for your consideration. If you can remember that these instincts we have towards tribalism, towards war, protecting family, tribe from perceived enemies or threats, hoarding resources in times of scarcity, it's something that really goes back to our second density great ape ancestors. And that the direction from here is fourth density, the direction of unconditional love for all others, whether they are service to others or service to self. And that the whole point of third density, if you were not aware of it, is to choose between the path of service to self or service to others, whether you're going to think and care about others or if you're only going to think about yourself. They're equally valid paths according to the law of one, but the meaning of life, shall we say, is to pick one of those paths or others and commit to it to see if you can polarize enough to move on to the next level and choose to evolve forward rather than going back to primal great ape ancestors. And remember the 100th monkey effect. Remember the Gaia Meditations. Those are things that can be very helpful each day and can make a part of your daily life that can make a difference in bringing about the future that we all hope for, at least on service to others' path. Did you have any, Yasi, any takeaway lessons of your own you wanted to add or final reflections?
Well, I just thought of this, but Jane Goodall just passed away a few weeks ago. So since this is the Great Apes podcast, Jonathan, I think that it comes to me that Jane Goodall found this incredible way to connect to primates in such a way that was unthinkable at the time, and nobody could thought that that bridge could be crossed, and she did it, and she showed all of us that there is something underlying all of our connections that surpasses the physical and even surpasses densities if you think about it. So maybe just to be inspired by that and move forward. And when you come into contact with other people, instead of trying to see what's different or trying to see how you don't fit together, maybe look for those points of connection, because we truly at the most basic level are connected to each other. And it's easy to find those if you just have an open heart and you move forward with that intention, I guess. So
Beautifully said. Thank you for that reminder. I totally forgot about Dr.
I
Goodall.
forgot too. It just occurred to me. I forgot
Beautiful
too.
soul, if there ever was one.
Yeah.
Ben, anything to add? Any takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add?
One thing I always keep in mind is that especially in 2D and as we're in this divisive society, everyone is on their own pace in their evolution as a spirit and as a soul. And so I always have to remind myself to have compassion for those who see things the other way, because they've experienced life in a different way than I have. And so who am I to judge them for having their beliefs, because I was lucky enough to have the experiences that have led me to this point in my spiral. And so just remember that all is well, and everyone's on their own points, and no matter what happens, everything's okay, everything's gravy. So how lucky are we that we get to have this spiritual awakening and this awareness and be
Yes.
in part of this game with this special knowledge, like the secret key, like Jonathan just said a couple minutes ago, about the meaning of life. Like he just said the meaning of life is to choose STO or STS. There are a lot of people out there who are still pounding their heads against the wall trying to figure out what the meaning of life is. So, and they're because they're asleep and they don't realize, and they're afraid because they're not ready to progress. So it's all fine, it's all gravy, but just
Love it.
carry the light and keep smiling, and keep it light too, because it's pretty heavy out there right now, so we got to keep it. So
I love that.
So beautifully said, Ben. Thank you so much. Yeah, for viewers who didn't know, I mean, I was a philosophy major in college, and I've spent more or less every day of the last 40 plus years trying to find answers to the meaning of life. And I have studied many, many different religions, spiritual teachings, philosophies, and so on. Not one of them said anything about the meaning of life being to choose between the path of service to self and service to others. Had I known this decades ago, yeah, it would have changed everything. But yeah, to see that now, I got to say, wow, that really is something. And it's something that helps me make sense of a world that otherwise I have a very hard time making sense out of. So appreciate
Definitely.
your reminder of that. Ashley, any takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add?
many numerous lessons, but I wanted to close with the thoughts that everything is happening for a reason, and that reason is good. Everything that has happened up until this point has been for our highest good, and we can have faith in that. And also that, again, we are who we choose to be. We are who we choose to be. And I love all of you in virtual space and here. Love you so much. And we got this. We can do it.
Love you,
Great.
Ashley, and you are loved by many, many, many as well, seen and unseen. Yeah, I do have to remind myself pretty much many times every day that there is a larger process happening here, and it is a good process. Doesn't look so great at ground level up close, but if you are able to dolly back the camera, as Carla said, and look at what's happening from a distance, and look at the interplay of positive and negative energies on the planet as it moves into fourth density, it is a beautiful thing. And as Ben said, it's a privilege for us to be able to incarnate and be a part of it and helping as best we can. Thank you all so much. I did want to note for our viewers that if you enjoyed this episode and found it interesting, you might want to check out our podcast episodes on densities and dimensions, chakras and energy centers, war and peace, Mars and Maldek, and of course, time laterals and space pirates. Those are all episodes where we do deeper dives into topics that we just kind of touched on today. A lot of great passages. Otherwise, of course, it is time for your pop quiz. Pop quiz is something we like to do at the end of our podcast, just for fun, just to end our time together and our otherwise serious discussions on a light note, and maybe look for Law of One connections in pop culture. Since today's episode was about great apes, you really don't have to be a genius or a psychic to guess what today's pop quiz is about. It is, of course, about the science fiction franchise about a planet where apes are the masters, humans are the slaves. First movie came out in 1968, starring Charlton Heston. There have been 9 more since then, most recently in
Wow.
2024. I am, of course, referring to what movie franchise, panelists?
Planet of the Apes.
Hey.
I did actually think about doing 12 Monkeys, because that is like one of my favorite science fiction films. But
Or King Kong.
oh, I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Planet of the Apes
No,
was
it was
just kind of
perfect.
a no-brainer. I mean,
Yeah.
it would be a crime against humanity not to do this.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen any or all of these movies?
I've
seen a
seen
few.
the last 4 or 5, not the early ones.
Yeah, I think same with me, except for the very first one. I've seen the very first one and then the last few.
Have seen the first one, Yasi?
Yeah, a long time ago though.
Of course. How about you, Ben?
I think I saw Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and I might have seen parts of the other ones. I didn't see any of the old Charlton Heston ones, but the recent ones.
Did not see the first one?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Nice. Well, we could do a pop quiz on the whole franchise, but because that first movie in 1968 is such a huge part of our pop culture consciousness, and because even if you haven't seen the movie, you probably know a little bit about some of the lines and the twist ending and such. So that's what we're going to do. Panelists, go ahead. You can say your answers out loud. You who are watching on this video, you can go ahead, say your answers out loud as well, because we can hear you through time space. Are you ready for your first question?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Question is, who wrote the first draft of the Planet of the Apes movie script? Was it A, Philip K. Dick, B, Harlan Ellison, or C, Rod Serling?
Oh, we should know this.
I feel it's C.
That's
I'm
what
gonna
I was
say-
thinking too. C also.
Good guess.
I'm going to be different and say A.
Nice.
That's
Good
my
guess.
runner-up choice.
All 3 are really great science fiction writers. Philip K. Dick, I believe, wrote several books that have been made into movies, including Blade Runner, Total Recall, Minority Report, and more. In this case, the correct answer is indeed Rod Serling. Do you guys know who Rod Serling is? Are you aware of the Twilight Zone?
Oh, yes. I know the
That's
Twilight.
what I know. I was like, I think so. He sounds familiar. That's right. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, that goes back a long ways, well before you guys were born, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, that series in the late 1960s called The Twilight Zone was written by Rod Serling, who narrated it. And it was the beginning of just really interesting out there sci-fi in territory that nobody had ever tread before. And he told just really interesting stories, science fiction stories, often with twists in them. So yes, he indeed wrote the first draft of the script. It was given to somebody else, I believe, named Michael Wilson, who did a fair number of changes afterwards. But I think most of what you saw was still pretty true to the Rod Serling script.
Interesting.
but
Let's try.
they played the Twilight Zone for years and years on the Sci-Fi Network. So I grew up, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, watching those black
Oh,
and
nice.
white episodes and the newer ones when they went.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah, me too. I
You've
used to
probably
watch the
watched
black
more
and
of them
white.
than I have. I don't think I've actually seen more than a couple of the episodes, so that's hilarious. Yeah, I think it's fair to say movies, I don't know, Stranger Things, Black Mirror, any of those modern things, I think can pretty much be traced back to the Twilight Zone. That was the
Probably true.
godfather of them all, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah.
you're right. They were so good.
Yeah, yeah. Ready for your next question?
Yes.
This might be a tough one. You did not see the actual first movie. The question is, what was Charlton Heston's first spoken line to the apes in Planet of the Apes? Was it A, get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape? Or B, get your stinking paws off me, you dirty damn ape? Or C, get your filthy paws off me, you dirty damn ape?
What?
This is a nerd check. This is a nerd check. Which one of those? It was one of them.
I think it's the first one, A.
Good guess.
Huh.
Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirt. I don't know. C. I'm just gonna say C.
I'm gonna go with B. This is
Nice.
variety.
If you were playing as a team, you'd have all your bases covered. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
no. This is a service to self pop quiz. It's why you're all on your own. And the correct answer is indeed A. A was indeed.
Very
It is
good, Ben.
66th on the American Film Institute's list of the 100 greatest movie quotes of all time.
Wow.
Nice.
Have you guys seen, do you know that line at all? Does that line mean anything to you? Do you know what the scene was?
I don't remember this. I have to go back and watch this now.
It was a great scene. Do you remember, Ben? You want to describe it for our viewers who
Don't
have not
remember.
seen it?
I actually just know the line from because I've heard it as a drop or something repeatedly throughout my life. So I remember it was damn dirty ape. I remember that the way because he was saying it was such fervor. So.
Damn dirty.
Nice. For viewers who haven't seen it, and again, this was like in 1968, the story is about a group of astronauts, including Charlton Heston, who go on a interstellar trip in a rocket that goes far, far into the distance. They're put into cryogenic sleep. Their rocket ends up crashing on a planet. They wake up, they come out of it, and they're exploring this seemingly desert-like planet, only to discover that the planet is like inhabited by humans who are hunted down by apes who are basically in charge. And somewhere in the process of the hunt, Heston gets shot in the throat, so he can't speak. So none of the other humans on that planet can speak. So he's like just kind of trapped there with all of them. But at some point after a while, his throat heals up. And in the process of like rebelling against his ape masters, they string him up in this net. And he finally speaks his first line, which is line number A, which is hilarious. If you remember, or maybe in case you didn't know, Charlton Heston became famous quite a bit years later, or infamous, depending on how you feel about gun violence and school shootings. He was president of the NRA, or the National Rifle Association, for many years, an organization that has pretty much responsible for doing nothing to prevent school shootings and gun violence in this country. And he's famous for saying at a convention, I'll give you my gun when you pry it out of my cold, dead hands. Something he said many times afterwards. I personally think he should have said, get your stinking paws off my guns, you dirty damn apes. I think that would have been way better. Would have carried far more.
Full circle moment for him there.
Jeez.
Oh, Jesus Christ. If there's any NRA fans out there, I'm pretty sure you're not watching this
I know,
video.
right?
But if you are, I
many plot
apologize.
twists?
I love you.
Plot twist.
Forgive me. You need to forgive me if you want to graduate service to others. Are you ready for your last question? Your last question is about the ending, which I'm thinking, even if you didn't see the movies, you have some knowledge of the ending. It is one of the most iconic movie twist endings, right up there with The Sixth Sense, The Usual Suspects. Are you aware of the ending? Do you know how the movie ends?
Yes.
I think so. I think so.
What has it been for our Ashley and our viewers who don't know?
So he comes to the realization that he's been on Earth the whole time, I believe.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
Civilization has completely reset, and apparently the apes have taken over.
Right. Because up to that point, the assumption was that they had flown to some far, far distant planet that just happened to be ruled by apes and that happened to have humans as slaves. And at the very, very end, he discovers the Statue of Liberty buried in the sand and finds that he's been on Earth the whole time and that they're in a post-apocalyptic future Earth, basically. It's a great ending. It's one of the best iconic movie endings of all time, for sure. So the question is, who wrote the twist ending to the movie? Was it Rod Serling, who wrote the first draft of the script? Was it Charlton Heston, the lead actor? Was it Franklin Schaffner, the movie director? Or was it Pierre Boulle, the author of the novel that the book was based, that the movie was based on?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm gonna say D.
I'm gonna say B.
I'll say C.
Nice. Correct answer is A, Rod Serling.
I thought it was
I was just messing with you. That's what pop quizzes are about. Any of those, I mean, are feasible. The interesting thing, in case you didn't know this, it's based on a book by a French novelist. His name is Pierre Boulle. He wrote the book in 1963, like 5 years before the movie was made. And he also wrote The Bridge Over the River Kwai, which was made into a Oscar-winning movie, I believe. And he himself did not consider this book a particularly good book, did not think it was one of his greater works. And it had a different ending. I think the way he wrote the ending, Charlton Heston character, while he was French in the book, was basically stranded on the planet and left there. And I think ended up trying to send some help message out into space, like the proverbial message in the bottle. But it was Rod Serling who actually wrote a Twilight Zone episode that you can see some similarities to the Planet of the Apes plot, who I believe at least is credited with coming up with the ending.
That's amazing.
cool.
I know.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It's super cool. Super cool. And yeah, if you have not seen the movie, there's another line that Charlton Heston shows. The way they show the reveal of the Statue of Liberty is very kind of like clever and creative, because they kind of show it a little bit at a time until you see him realizing that that's what it is and that's where he is. And then he collapses into the waves and like pounds on the sands and says, "You maniacs, you blew it up. God damn you all to hell." It just says it with such fury, like he was born to say that line. And yeah, Yeah. It just echoes, the whole Mars Maldek blowing up the planet thing. It really seems like this could be a possible future that we are looking at.
That's interesting.
No way.
Yeah, that's
Well,
really interesting.
there is a final Quo passage that maybe might like to end on. Quo on March 19th, 2006 said, Gaia herself does not at this time need to shake you off like fleas. However, as we have said before, we caution you, for there are entities all around your globe whose vision of ascension includes a self-created apocalypse. There is almost a hunger within that part of the planetary consciousness that is invested in power for the dark pleasure of blowing everything up once again. See what you can do, my friends, to elect officials who are not caught in that glorious Gotterdammerung vision. See what you can do to elect officials whose hearts are stayed on love itself, and whose vision is one which includes all entities and any plans that it may make, not just those who are wealthy or powerful. Spoken in 2006, but boy, does that resonate for today.
When elections mattered. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, for folks who do care. And there's a lot of folks I've met in the Law of One community who just don't bother voting.
I'm just
Thing.
joking.
Don't hold
I'm
that
just
against them
joking.
either.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Gotterdammerung, I believe, is a
Wow.
term that refers to Ragnarok, or the end of the world in a glorious destruction. And I think it was used in Wagner's Ring Cycle opera or something like that. That's as much as I dug up in my research. You guys have any last final thoughts, closing thoughts before we say goodbye?
I'm very grateful that Gaia has not saw fit to shake us off like fleas.
Yeah.
So just a of love and consideration, because Gaia is also putting in a lot of work for us to sustain and giving us the time to be here and do these things, like immense work in ways seen and unseen. So shout out to Gaia, love all day, best planet.
And all the other angelic beings from the Confederation or elsewhere who are also working behind the scenes, unseen, supporting
Yes.
synchronicities, giving us love in our dreams and our conscious, subconscious, or otherwise. Shout out
Thank
to them as well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, definitely. I feel them around a lot. I really do. So I think it's a good sign.
indeed.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jonathan.
And
Keep
thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, pals. It's been a blast. Like I said, I was really hoping I could get the three of you on this panel. I could not think of three other people that I would rather have this conversation with. So thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all our friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you've done, continue to do in service to others. To you who are watching this video sometime in the near future, or maybe in the very, very, very far distant future, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. We're sending you our love light, and we are indeed receiving yours. Until next time, in love and light of the one infinite creator. Adonai. Namaste.
Adonai.